Welcome everybody, and I know we've got lots of new people, so I will introduce myself and say a little bit about Mindfulness Wales before I hand over to what's on the screen and what you've really come for to find out more about Luke Doherty and Boxing and Mindfulness. So I'm Liz Williams and I am Chair of Mindfulness Wales. And for those of you who don't know, we are a charity, a small but perfectly formed. There are 7 of us on the board. And we started off following a meeting with Mark Drakeford way back in 2019 when he was First Minister, when he challenged us to go out and find how we could make mindfulness relevant and how it could make a real systemic difference to what we're doing in Wales. So this is us, Mindfulness Wales, and what we've been doing, because when we became a charity, of course, COVID hit, is we've been having these events, not every month, but we have quite a few a year, really just to up our game in terms of mindfulness, find out more about it. And we've got a whole list of our past events, which you can find on our website and go back over that. But in the last year, we have been working on making our vision a bit more real. Now, our vision as Mindfulness Wales is to use mindfulness, to share mindfulness, to help Wales become a more compassionate, kinder, fairer and more sustainable society. And nobody can argue with that, but it is a bit wide. So over the last year, we've been narrowing it down to more about nurturing mindful communities. And that is about weaving mindfulness into parts of life and work that wouldn't necessarily ordinarily have found it. And that is exactly how we've met up with Luke, because that's exactly what he's trying to do as well. So nurturing mindful communities is all about sharing mindfulness, weaving it into places of work and taking it to people and meeting them at where it's at, which is, as you say, Luke's title there. And that is really about making in context. And the context today is really exciting because it's about boxing and mindfulness, and lots of interest about boxing, and the opportunity to get it to people who perhaps have other interests, perhaps wouldn't have access. And we're going to go on. We're going to have a new website soon, and we're going to be within the next couple of weeks, we hope, we're going to be sharing the stories of what mindfulness is already going on in Wales and elsewhere. So we'll see if we can put our website address in the chat for you to follow up. And if you join our mailing list, we will send you when our new site goes live. And there you can access our past talks and share your stories, because some of you will have some lovely stories to tell as well. And coming up next year, we are looking at taking this further. We're maybe looking at mindful DJing, mindful photography. So we're really looking at all sorts of different ways where we can take mindfulness to people, meeting people where they are at. So coming back to tonight, and you'll see why this feels so relevant to us. We met Luke, we came across Luke because last year he was one of the winners of the Mindfulness Initiative Innovations Awards for the work that he's been doing. And Luke came into all of this from the elite end of things. You know, Luke himself is an elite rugby player, capped, unfortunately not for Wales. Luke, we know we're a bit sad about that, but we'll forgive you. But, you know, his company Mindful Peak Performance works a lot with elite athletes and companies and leaders. And that is wonderful, because that's also how we change the world. But it's well accepted that people, in terms of athletes and sports people, have mind training as part of their physical training, goes with the course there. Why Luke won the award and where our paths are crossing tonight is that Luke has been doing a lot of work on making this accessible to other people who wouldn't normally have that opportunity, people who are not engaged in training and sort of opportunities to develop their minds in such a way. And that's what he's been working at over a period of time now. And it's that journey and how we can make it real, how we can make mindfulness work real, how we can meet people where they're at. And for tonight, we're looking at boxing, but actually, there will be a lot I'm sure we can learn from this that we can really take out in terms of our philosophy, how we make it relevant, how we take it to people, how we make it accessible as far as we can. If we really want to nurture mindful communities, we need to weave it into the far corners of life so that everyone can be more compassionate, kinder, fairer, uh, because that's just what we need at the moment, isn't it? I don't think any of you will disagree with that. So, Luke, I'm going to invite you now to lead us in a practice and to tell us a bit more about your journey and how that might be relevant. And when we get to the end of this, Luke is going to talk to us. Then he'll take questions. So we're hoping there are going to be some questions there. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could get to the end of this evening and say, do you know what? Is there a project for us in Wales here? Is there something that we could do in Wales? As far as we know, there isn't anything in this region being done. Lots of boxing being done, but not bringing mindfulness together. So let's leave that one on the table and let's talk about what might be possible when we get to the question and answer session at the end. So Luke, I'm going to hand over to you. And thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk to us tonight and just to really talk to our theme. This is why this is so amazing, that our theme of making mindfulness real, meeting people where they're at from the point of view of it being your theme and what you've been doing.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I feel really resonant with what you're saying there. So great. So let's start with a practice. I'll give you the agenda first, what we're going to look at. Oh, just want to check. Oh, there you go. So yeah, we're going to do a practice to start with. I'm going to give you my personal journey, and there's going to be a second practice, and then I'm going to talk about forming mindful peak performance and BAM and the journey around that and some of the learnings, including giving you some insights into our training program, which we just completed our second training program this week, where we trained 20 youth workers to pass on BAM in the community. So I've got some very live updates on that. And then a third practice. Now, these practices are going to be micro practices. So I do want this evening to be an experience where we practice together. If anyone hasn't practiced mindfulness before, that's totally cool. If anyone has, and there's some experienced practitioners here, please come with a beginner's mind. These are very foundational practices we're going to be doing. So please have that kind of awareness if you can. So yeah, so if you're ready to, and you're happy to, closing your eyes, or you can have your gaze downwards. And we're just going to start with a period of stillness. I say stillness, but let's spend a moment just giving some space to noticing what's going on a thought level. Is your mind busy? Are you feeling preoccupied? Just noticing what's going on that level. Not pushing your thoughts away, just giving some space. Just to take stock of how your mind is at this time, just past 7 on a Thursday, moving towards the end of the week. And in this practice, just having an intention to gently come away from thinking processes and just step into connection with the sensations that are in the body. And in this first practice, we'll go down the body from the head area down to the feet. So now bringing your awareness into relationship with the shoulders and shifting away from thinking into sensing what can you feel in the shoulders, noticing the weight, noticing if there's any tension, if there's any sense of ease or dropping. And just holding your awareness there. And we're going to just create a bit of space so this talk can land. Just like a ship drops an anchor down, let's drop our awareness down the back, down the spine, sensing into the back, noticing what your back is resting against, and just letting your awareness move down the back to the base of the spine, and noticing what the flavor of the sensations are in the lower back, in the base of the spine, and hopefully starting to land a bit more in your physical body and a little bit less in what can sometimes be like a hamster wheel of thinking processes going round and round. And if your mind takes you away, smile, notice, don't give yourself a hard time, and just almost fall back into connection with the sensations in the back. And then from the back, a bit like a river breaking into two tributaries, letting your awareness move down into the legs, the hamstrings, that sense of resistance that you can feel, your legs against the chair. And then finally, right the way down to your heels, soles of your feet, noticing and sensing in to again the resistance of your feet against the floor. Furthest point away from the head. And then letting go of the focus and becoming aware of the sensations that are in the body. And just let your awareness broaden, noticing what you can hear in terms of my voice, what's in your immediate environment. Maybe you can hear things outside of your home or wherever you are. Start to let your awareness broaden. Also recognizing there's quite a few people on this call. So we may be online, but seeing if you can sense the collective energy of being together here now. And we're just going to sit just in this stillness, in this broad awareness for 1 more minute, and then we'll move into the talk. And just giving yourself this space. And transitions are really important. So whatever you've done today, using this as a bit of a pause and a gateway into something, whatever's going to unfold in this next hour or so. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes, bringing your awareness back. And yeah, I'm gonna start. So thank you for that. So yeah, let's move into the first slide. So yeah, you're gonna get my history because a lot of my history has been is sort of the background in terms of the development of BAM, and it starts here. So when I was 5, I was statemented with dyslexia and dyspraxia, and I was taught one-to-one in primary school and a lot of secondary school, and it was yeah, we're really grateful to have had that support. And when my mum was the same age, she was deemed remedial when she was at school. So my parents fought quite hard for me to get the support I needed, and I had a particular learning style. But I wore these I don't know what they're called, but I wore these particular purple glasses that really helped me read, and they kind of cleared. They helped with dyslexia, and they were quite unusual. And I being taught on my own, I remember kids from the class coming in to my sort of room where I was taught on my own and just making me feel very shy and embarrassed. I didn't really it was quite a strange sort of start really, but appreciative. And when I was ooh, when I was 11, I got drawn out of this kind of shyness, and I went on a quest with 4 of my friends to be a professional rugby player. That was what I wanted to do. So I had this dual thing going on. I was in the bottom sets for everything. I was wearing these strange glasses and taught on my own. And yet I was the captain of the rugby team and had a very strong drive to be a professional rugby player. And that quest was amazing. And from basically 11 to 18, I was playing for 4 different rugby teams at once. Um, I was just rugby was my life, and the physicality of that and the way that absorbed my emotions, the team spirit of that, the friendships, the coaches, all of this just was the backbone of my kind of early life. And so huge respect for team sports and kind of the outlet it provides for young people. And in a way, it kind of like it gave me the anchor and direction of which I'm still running on now. It gave me the discipline, the resilience, learned so much in that time. What I didn't have, and I was training at a very high level, I didn't have anything to support my mental health. Apart from really good friends and coaches, which I think is a really strong cornerstone for mental health, but there was nothing around like training my mind. There was nothing around mindfulness at this time, and in my early life, which now looking back when I'm working in sports context, it feels amazing to be able to pass these tools on. And to what Liz was saying earlier, this is available in the sports world, training your mind. It is available in leadership teams, and it's at this elite level. However, it's not always accessible. It has to be landed in a very particular way in certain sporting contexts for it to get over the line and be taken seriously. So I've learned a lot in that in the quest I've been on to make mindfulness accessible in the sports world. So moving forward to when I was 16, this is where when I was 16, I think looking back, where actually I stumbled across mindfulness. But it's only been looking back that I could really see it. When I was 16, I got a scholarship to go to a rugby school. So I'm to take rugby more seriously. And we would train 3 times a day. We had this big room and we had a weights bench in the middle. There was 8 of us brought in from around the county and different parts of England, and we lived in this room. We didn't really integrate with the school, but we just played rugby, and it was quite amazing, really. And what I noticed is when I was playing rugby and training and really connected to what I was doing, I wasn't thinking about the past, I wasn't thinking about the future. I was completely absorbed, and I would often experience for very long periods of time just flow states and states of mind that weren't preoccupied with any kind of thinking. So that showed up really strongly in sport for me. But also I'm an artist, and when I was 16, my art teacher gave me the keys to the art department, and he recognized something in me, which I'm really grateful for now. And he told me to stop following the syllabus, and I just made these huge paintings, like I've got hundreds of them. But he really sparked me off, and I just created. And I would go there when I wasn't training. I would go there in the evenings, and I would just paint. And again, I had this flavor of an experience where I wasn't thinking about the past, wasn't thinking about the future. I was really absorbed and connected in what I was doing, and it was this spark in me that I wasn't just finding in training and in rugby. I started to experience it in art. And then the third symbol here is Morrison's, which you might think is a bit of a random a random thing to put on a slide. But on a Sunday, I was working at Morrison, so I was an administrator. We'd often go out on Saturday night if we won, and so I'd turn up often quite hungover, and I actually lost my job at Morrison's. That's another story. But one thing I started doing at that age is I would close my eyes in Morrison's and I would start to recollect periods of my life um, that were pleasant from the past, and I would get absorbed in these states of mind for sometimes hours at a time, and it really struck me. It was like again I was experiencing this capacity to not be caught up in thinking patterns and be really connected and absorbed, and found that kind of recollection practice a way of getting into quite deep meditative states without even realizing really what I was doing. So I did lose my job for not being very effective at what I was doing in Morrison's. It was partly because I'd stumbled across meditation. So I'm not really, I was quite happy with that in a way. So yeah, when I was 16, this something was sparking in me, and something was wanting me to move towards um, wholeness, I think, and something. And as I look back now, these were the seeds of my mindfulness practice coming through at that age. So I then went and did something totally against the grain, even though rugby and art was my passion. I went and I did 2 degrees in law, which was so not me. Well, it's important to go through phases of life where you go against the grain and learn. But really, what I was doing was trying to prove that I wasn't stupid, because I was taught one-to-one and felt very embarrassed, and my intellectual capacities I thought were quite underdeveloped. So I put myself under the pressure of studying law, and I did really well. And I used the same discipline and determination that I brought towards professional rugby, and moved it towards law. But after that period, I just went for a huge breakdown basically, and realized that I'd just been going against my own volition and instinct about what I should have been doing with my life, or what I wanted to do with my life. So yeah, that was a really a period of of deep learning in my early 20s. But it led me to searching for more human connection. And once I'd finished my second degree in law, I just remember typing into Google, caring for people. I wanted to work with people. I wanted to connect with the world and society in a different way. I didn't want to be stuck in my head. If there's any lawyers, and I often work with law firms actually, and I tell this story, but I'm not against law. It wasn't my calling. So yeah, I ended up getting a job supporting people with learning disabilities, autism, and mental health issues to live independently in society. And then I started managing care homes and supported living projects across East London, and just working directly with vulnerable adults and young people with quite complex needs. And it really brought me into relationship with the world, and into society. And just had an amazing time, really sort of meeting such a different range of people, and got really sparked off by community work. Um, so that was an amazing period of kind of growth. And then I found myself managing a care home, and in quite a complex, quite out of my depth, really. I was only 23 years old, and I had a staff team of 15 people. There was a lot of abuse, allegations, and very complex situations that I had to manage. And it was at this period of time that I stumbled across meditation. So this is the London Buddhist Centre in Bethnal Green, and I bought my friend a meditation class as a birthday present. But really, I knew that I needed something. I knew that my drive and my kind of everything was getting a bit out of hand again. And I knew I needed to kind of look at how I managed my emotions, and had an instinct that meditation might help. But I was very resistant. I was like, no, this is for hippies. This is weird. I'm not doing this. Something in me was just not vibing. But I went and did it. And after I experienced my first meditation, it was like a light bulb just switched. And I know not everybody has this experience, but I came out feeling lighter, feeling clearer, feeling more connected. And something opened up in that first meditation that led me to go on a retreat a few months later. And since that retreat, which was, good 12, 13, 14 years ago, my life has completely changed ever since. And I followed a thread of something that opened up for me on that retreat, which is essentially learning to connect with myself, and the power of meditation, and how it started to connect me to who I was in a more authentic way, and how that led me to then connect with others and be with others. And I remember that the project that I was managing, it really struck me when you notice that other people are starting to notice you're making changes. my staff team were like, why are you not being angry anymore? Why are you being kind? And it wasn't like I was trying to be any of this. It was just the natural emergence of what happens when you practice. Um, so yeah, I feel coming from this experience, I feel very, very passionately that we need to find ways for young people to have these experiences where they can be sparked off, where seeds can be planted, for young people to develop these tools and ethoses about how they can evolve as human beings. And this is how I stumbled across it. Um, I actually went on to spend, well, I'll come on to, but I spent 7 years at the London Buddhist Centre, living there and also working and managing Breathing Space, which is the secular wing of the centre, and learnt to teach mindfulness for depression, addiction, stress. And yeah, I spent a long period of time doing that, and also in the I completed the ordination retreats while I was there, and I decided not to go down that route. It didn't feel like it was really my calling. But I'll move back on. I'll come back to this in a moment. At this point in the talk, I just want to ask you to close your eyes. And again, I know there's some experienced practitioners on the call, but there's also probably some people that might be new, or and I'm hoping there's a mixture of people. So I want you to approach this question um, as you as freshly as you can. And with your eyes closed, if you're happy to, I'm just going to drop in the question. So I've shared with you my journey, and I want to bring you along at every point in this talk. And I want to ask you the question, can you connect to a time in the past when you were absorbed in some kind of flow state? Now, that doesn't have to be in meditation. It certainly won't probably be working in Morrison's or playing rugby in the way that I was. What's your equivalent? Where are the things outside of meditation? Where are the things that connect you to yourself and connect you to yourself in an essential way where you're not thinking about the past or the future or worrying? Where are these kind of flow moments in your life? I just think this is a really healthy exercise to do at any point as a reminder. So I'm going to give you a minute with that question. And there might be more than one. There might not be anything that you can recollect. That's also fine. And I think this is quite a powerful exercise with young people. It's starting to connect them to something that is related to mindfulness, but that might already be in their everyday life. It's basically saying that mindfulness is an innate capacity that we all have, and it can show up. And what I mean by mindfulness is it's a simplistic notion, I know it's a complex, practicing mindfulness is a complex thing, but we all want more of that state of mind that feels whole. And I think mindfulness is an amazing tool that can support that. So where is that flow state? Can you recollect? And when we open our eyes, just welcome anybody to share, both in the chat, or if you want to speak out loud, that'd be really cool as well. So 30 seconds longer. Yeah, so and then coming out of this reflection. And if anyone wants to share or put in the chat box, that would be appreciated. And if we've got a moderator wants to read any of these comments out. Let's see. I can have a look.
Yeah, so just a few coming in now, actually. So Kate was saying about playing netball, running, playing the flute. Roy mentioned being outdoors in nature. There's a couple of comments that come up.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, everybody. Okay. So for those that didn't share, just, yeah, taking stock and just reflecting and having that as a question. So yeah, back to where I'm at with the journey. So yeah, I spent 7 years at the London Buddhist Centre, and in that time, as I alluded to a moment ago, I was managing breathing space, and as well as teaching mindfulness for depression, stress and anxiety, and addiction through the mindfulness courses, I had a real passion for taking mindfulness out into society. So yeah, started working with carers and tailoring mindfulness MBSR and working directly with carers across East London and London and doing carers retreats for that whole time. And one thing that I found really profound was the way that the content came into relationship with the carers' lives and how conversations started emerging about how the mindfulness would work for them, and how this idea of, like, instead of just teaching them a mindfulness course, let's deliver some content and just start conversations with people in the community, see what they think about the language, see what they think about the length of the practices, see how it relates to their life, and just started this conversation around the content we were delivering. And through that 7 year period, I was often teaching out in the community in that way. And I think that was one of the things that I realized that's what I'm really passionate about. And after I'd finished the ordination retreats, I went into a period of chronic back pain. So I'd completed the ordination retreats. I'd done a lot of training, done some training at Breathworks, and yeah, was kind of thought I was ready to go off and get ordained. But I developed chronic back pain. So for particularly the last year, I couldn't sit down. So I had chronic back pain, and it was a really intense period of my life. And then I went on a retreat myself in that period. And in that period, I remember meditating, and suddenly I got a flood of inspiration. All of my rugby coaches, rugby friends, came back to me, and I just had this experience of the pain in my back just dissipating. And it was quite remarkable experience, and just had a very clear voice which said, go into the sports world, take what you've learned and go into the sports world. What I didn't say earlier was that when two of my friends in the sports world sadly took their lives, so they went on to be professional rugby players, and they didn't have the right kind of support around some of the pressures they were facing, and yeah, that got to quite a serious, created that some devastation there. So I think I was quite aware of that in my early 20s, and something was calling me back to kind of back into the sports world, and also I think to connect with the athlete in me. What I found at that time of my training in mindfulness, I needed a much more raw expression of energy, and I was doing a lot of meditation, and I dampened down the importance of me to express things like anger, and these strong emotions weren't coming through into my practice. So when I started working in the sports world, something in me started waking up. So I set up MPP. So yeah, I left the London Buddhist Centre with gratitude for my time there, and I set up Mindful Peak Performance. And initially, it was to go into the sports world. There's a very strong connection with the work that happened in the sports world and BAM, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. But yeah, so I left the Buddhist Centre, and I was very fortunate to get an offer to work at Saracens Rugby Club and also Harlequins Rugby Club. And I spent a year a year and a half with Harlequins Rugby Club, teaching them how to meditate. And in that time, it was really interesting because not all the rugby players were interested. And this is to what I was saying earlier to Liz. I would start, mind training and the psychological side of sport is very evolved, and it's expected, and it's kind of normalized in a way. But the attitude when I started teaching at Harlequins was the players would laugh. It was like they wouldn't take it seriously, and the lengths of practices they didn't work for them. So I realized pretty quickly that this is going to have to be a conversation with the athletes. If I'm going to stay and work in this environment, I'm going to need to talk to them. I can't just deliver MBSR courses and kind of the length the length of practices that were in the material. I needed to have a conversation with how this is going to land for them. So I've got this little hook, which is down at the bottom there. So I started working with Marcus Smith, who's quite a serious rugby player, and he initially wasn't like really that into mindfulness, but as I started talking to him, I said, "Well, where do you find flow state in your life?" And he started talking about fly fishing, and I was like, "Okay, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about that. Evoke that feeling." And that I sort of said, "Well, leave mindfulness and just crack on with fly fishing." And it was that permission and that realization that there was already something in his life that connected him to a state of mind that wasn't preoccupied with thinking patterns and processes, that then provided a doorway into mindfulness. And that simple way of introducing people to say, where do you find this connection already in your life? It might be in areas you might find this kind of inner stillness and this wholeness in all sorts of areas. So it really helped people and the athletes realize that what they were doing through meditating, where they were trying to get to, was something that they had a familiarity with. And that was a really simple but powerful way to get a lot of the athletes to realize that they kind of knew something about flow state. They knew something about being absorbed in their body. They knew something about how it with their mind through just ordinary things that they do in their life. And that was a change in narrative that really helped. And one of the other things that we did, we just looked at changing language around training the mind. Instead of bringing compassion in, we talked about mutual respect. Yeah, in certain environments, this landed better. And yeah, we shortened the practices and created a lot of micro practices and just made everything conversational with the athletes. And that after working with Harlequins, that led to working with Team GB, PCA, British Weightlifting, Brentford, and quite a few other different sports more recently. But one thing that was really powerful at this time, the origins of BAM got pronounced through working in the sport world, because something that I was really amazed by was how athletes are not in front of screens in the way that we are. I say we, I don't know, there might be some athletes on the call, but they're training for 4 or 5 hours a day, and that gives you a particular connection with your body that most people don't have. And what I found when I was delivering meditations with athletes, because of that physical embodiment, their nervous systems responded more quickly to the mindfulness practices. There was a more visceral connection, and that was my experience when I first started meditating as well. And there was less of a need to kind of intellectually convince them that it was a good thing to do. They felt the connection very quickly. That is a generalization, but I think there's a truth in this. And I became interested in thinking about that, and also exploring in my own life, how does my mindfulness practice relate to physical training? I was boxing a lot with my brother at the time, and I would meditate before and after, and had this very strong connection with mindfulness through that. And at the same time, I was teaching mindfulness in a school at this time. This young person came up to me and said, how's this mindfulness thing going to help me if I've got the pressure of someone telling me to stab somebody to be part of a gang? And I just didn't have an answer to that question. It almost felt disrespectful to be telling this young person to sit down, do a meditation and work for his mind. For him, that was the last thing that he wanted to do when he was facing such an intense pressure. And I was really struck by that question. I didn't have an answer. It stayed in my mind. So that question, and then seeing quite a lot of different sports people really connect very viscerally to mindfulness through the physical embodiment of training, physical training. That was the seeds of BAM. So the idea of going out into boxing gyms and the idea of bringing mindfulness content and MBSR content into relationship with vigorous training and punch bags and totally different environments. It was just like this could work. Like, I just had an instinct. It was working for me, and it excited me. So we got a little bit of funding from the Mayor of London, I think it was at the time, to start exploring BAM. And yeah, the first session we went down to a local community centre in East London, in Leighton. Nobody turned up for the session, but there was a group of young people smoking weed in the corridor of the centre, and they were they weren't very favorable about us being there, and it looked like it could get a bit hairy. But we had a chat with them. They agreed to do the BAM session, and I don't know if it's because they were high or because I don't know. I don't know what, but they did it. We did a meditation practice. We introduced a theme around training your mind. We did some vigorous boxing training and got some steam out. And then we did a second meditation practice. And there was a spark in their eyes, and something convinced us, there was three of us delivering this, that there's something in this. And then we went on from there to deliver a course at the East London Boxing Academy, which is round the corner. 25 young people turned up, 20 young people completed the course. And it was so vibrant. Their parents came down at the end. There was such an energy around this combination that we created, and we were experimenting. And again, we were talking to them at every point. It's like, how are you getting on with this? How is this working for you? And it was just this conversational way of like listening to how they were grounding mindfulness in this boxing environment that I found so powerful. It felt like we were learning as much as they were learning. It was this dual process. There was no teacher. It's like they were helping convert mindfulness into a boxing gym. And I remember one session where we were sat in this boxing gym here, where there's rips on the carpet, and there was blood on the floor because they'd been sparring, and I think someone's nose got bust, and we were sat there, and there was blood, and it just felt okay for that to all coexist. And I thought to myself, this is better that this blood is being shed here. This physical violence is getting expressed in a boxing ring where there's rules. On the street, there's not. It can go much worse. And it felt very appropriate that we could sit and also develop stillness in that space. And that contradiction, and that I find that really inspiring. And that's where we've got to be real. We've got to go out and be in these environments and be willing to go out and be with young people where they feel safe. And for a lot of young people, boxing gyms and these kind of environments are very safe, and they're a strong diversionary activity in London away from gang culture. It absorbs a lot. So yeah, it was an amazing experience to start. And this picture here is very evocative, like seeing young people develop sensitivity and connection with their body and start to understand their mind because of they were in an environment where they felt safe, because of they had this sporting symbol behind the mindfulness practices. It's just opening doorways for them to start developing their own relationship and conversation with mindfulness and planting those seeds that they can take on. So yeah, that was the origins of BAM. So we did that course. I think that was in 2009. And then we went on to deliver BAM sessions. I think 700 BAM sessions across London over a 4 or 5 year period, and we gained about £200,000 of funding from various funding bodies to test BAM and just experiment with bringing it out into different groups. And what we found was that youth centres, boxing gyms were really amenable to BAM as an approach, but also we started to realise we could tailor it and we could work with specific young people that had their own specific needs. We found that young carers, for example, couldn't go to boxing gyms. There was an appetite for boxing. So we started tailoring specific courses for young carers and working directly with them, and starting conversations about themes that supported them. And yeah, just starting to realize there's a real need for this, and it's really landing well. So just to give you a bit of a sense of what BAM is, because it's actually quite an intricate process that we've developed. And what the BAM process is we start our first meditation just like we did earlier. We start at the head area and we move down the back of the body as a body scan practice right the way to the feet. And then what that's about is moving away from thinking into embodiment. And then we start the warm-up directly from the feet, and we encourage the young people to feel that connection and almost see the physical training and the mindfulness as a seamless activity. It's not like, right, now we're in the physical training. It's the whole thing's a physical, and the whole thing is connected. So then we start the warm-up at the feet, and then we go into the physical training, and that'll include classic boxing moves. But in the middle of the boxing, we pause and we do a 3-minute breathing space, and we start to get the young people to connect to their bodies from that very visceral place. And we pause in the middle of that physical release process. And then we go into a second meditation at the end, where we're trying to balance the body and mind. So we go back down to the feet where the warm-up is finished, and we go back up the front of the body, and we do a body scan back up to the shoulders, and we close the circuit. And then you can bring in MBSR themes at the start, and then we can do inquiry at the end. But that is the core kind of sequence that a BAM session that's been so effective with the young people, and I think what's providing a really realistic way for them to start planting the seeds of mindfulness and meditation. And it's interesting, on Sunday I was working with the British weightlifting team and their academy, and I was teaching them mindfulness, and we started talking about BAM, and it was really fascinating. We took out the boxing gloves and we put in snatch squats and deadlifts and different things in the middle here, and they started to get really fascinated, being like, and they were all enthused about starting a mindfulness practice around how they can bring in their physical training. And for me, this is the gateway. It's like it's just creating that spark of interest and way for the mindfulness to get in through the physical training. So that's the BAM sequence. And then what we've got next is, so that's, oh, blimey, no. I need to go back because, so if anyone's interested more in the funding side of it, there is funding out there, and I know the National Lottery is quite an amenable fund across the country. But we got quite a bit of funding from various funding bodies, and I think because people recognise it's innovative. And for anyone that's interested in mindfulness, our first paper is going to be published with East London University in a mindfulness journal, I think in February. So that gives more context on our theory of change, more around the evidence base we've been developing over the last 5 years around delivery, and also the model that we're now moving towards around how we're going to scale this. So moving towards that, the future of BAM. So we spent about 5 years testing BAM as an approach, and that's what with that £200,000 from various funding bodies allowed us to deliver a huge amount of BAM sessions and learn a lot from young people, and create that sequence and deliver it to different groups. And then we won the Innovation Award and that really helped us then think about, how do we scale this? How do we get this out into society more? And something that I was really struck with during that 5 years of testing BAM, we had a group of young youth workers that followed all of the sessions, and they were also boxing coaches. So they started shadowing the delivery, and they became really good at it. In fact, it got to a point where I was redundant, and I didn't know they were better at delivering this than I was, and they had the trusting relationship with the young people. So in the back of my mind, I was like, these are these workers and coaches are starting to naturally be trained up, and we got a little bit of funding to kind of give them support to start shadowing more BAM and learning how to deliver it. And I think it was 5 youth workers in that process then gave us the inspiration to, like, okay, let's condense our learning over the last 5 years and create a training program. So that's what we did after we won the Innovation Award, and we partnered with Mind, and we created this 3-day training to start training youth workers how to deliver BAM. And this is our first cohort of BAM teachers. And last year in November, we trained up this group of practitioners that were working with young Black men and young Black women, and also LGBTQ plus communities. And they really took to it. If anyone wants to see the evaluation video of this, you can see it on the Mindful Peak Performance website. That was our first cohort of trainees. And then this week, actually, we just completed our second training. So we trained up this group of youth workers in Leighton. And I'm still processing the impact of the training. We delivered it over a longer period of time. It was 5 half days over a 2-month period. And something that really struck me in the training was there's a number of youth workers here that go out and do outreach youth work. So they work on the streets, working with young people. And we create action plans at the end of the training. And they were talking about how they wanted to start delivering BAM, and started testing delivering BAM on the streets as a diversionary activity, like working with young people in that really direct way. And it just really excited me, the way that they're all starting to sort of think, where can I bring this? And it was really, really creative. Some of the ways that they're testing and bringing this out into the world. And over the next couple of months, I'll be shadowing and following how they start to bring it out and learning about how BAM, interacts with different environments and different cohorts of young people. But the powerful thing is here this is one borough in London, and all of these youth workers work across 8 different sites. So by training these youth workers, each of those sites has a BAM practitioner there. So I can start to see how we can start passing this knowledge on. And I think these are the people that need empowering. And because BAM's very physical, it's bodied, the learning is very, very quick. People are really getting a very strong experiential sense of how to deliver this. And we're in the process of developing a supervision process and developing the safety of how we scale this further. So that's where BAM is now. And I think in terms of Wales, I'd love to be able to train boxing coaches, youth workers in Wales, all over the country. And that's what really drew me to, I'm really vibing with where you're at, Liz, as an organization and making mindfulness real. And I think, this is where I want to head. I want to train more and more groups over the next, years and years to come. So yeah, that's where we're heading in the future. So what I've tried to do in this quite short period of time is basically give you a sense of my journey of how I've tried to make mindfulness relevant in my life through the journey I've been on, and then how it's become a kind of a collective journey. So after leaving that period of leaving the Buddhist center and then going into the sports world, it became this conversation with different environments that helped me land mindfulness for athletes, and also particularly athletes also that might be skeptical and cynical, and how that physical embodiment and seeing how they took to mindfulness provided a really strong symbol for young people. And then that key question that I got asked by that young person created this in curiosity in me, and then the willingness to go out into society and just deliver these sessions and talk to young people, get down into the boxing gyms and just see how it interacts. And there's loads and loads of, if people want to see some of the qualitative feedback, we've got about 15 different videos that you can check out to see what young people are saying and how, and the sort of co-production process we've been on is all captured in those videos. And the journey ahead is really about, sharing mindfulness with people and empowering people from within their communities to deliver this, who have those trusting relationships with young people, so that mindfulness can be brought out into the world in a different way, while still maintaining kind of the roots. I want to move now into a practice, so to sort of help absorb and sort of think if there's any questions emerging from this or any curiosity. So yeah, dropping your awareness back into practice. And we finished the first practice down at the feet. So I'm just mirroring a kind of BAM session here in a way. But instead of doing the boxing, I've been talking and hopefully you've been listening. So dropping your awareness to the feet, noticing the resistance of the feet against the floor. And we're going to go back up. And this is how a BAM session finishes. So we would have finished a warm down at our feet to cool down. And using that direct connection with the physical movement to help create more of an access point into the sensations in the body. And from this perspective, also we're exploring BAM in relationship to trauma, and how the physical training provides a different kind of access point. Particularly when there's a lot of content there that might be challenging to feel without that kind of physical expression. And I think it's broader than that. I think this combination also is a real counterbalance to tech and screens and input, which is all good. Don't want to demonize, but this kind of more physical way of relating to mindfulness, I think, is really quite important at this time. So connecting with the feet and noticing the weight, the resistance, the sensations that you can feel there. And then drawing your awareness up to include the shins, the calves, and into the kneecaps, noticing if you can sense and feel anything in that part of the body. And if the mind comes in, just noticing that, and then dropping your awareness back into relationship with the body and broadening from the kneecaps to include not just the back of the legs this time, but the front of the legs, the quadriceps. And you could imagine if you've done some training now, you're going to have more of a solid connection to the body. There's also an endorphin release often after physical training, which creates an access point. And then directly now to the stomach area, and just notice, if you can, the movements of the breath in this part of the body. Don't change the breathing process, just notice if it shows up, the direct movements, and then connected to the movements, the sensations, whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, just allowing whatever's there to be there. And then starting to broaden from the stomach to include the rib cage, the torso. And then to include a powerful organ in the body, the heart. And that's something we've also received feedback from young people. Calling the heart a powerful organ has actually been really supportive in opening compassion, power, and heart. For certain young people, that's been appreciated, that change in language, or just that emphasis. And what I've tried to imbibe in this talk is, it's been a conversation. BAM has been developed through a conversation with young people, coaches, youth workers, and it's been this dual process of passing something on, but also receiving, and mindfulness being grounded in different environments. And kind of giving permission for mindfulness to exist in places where it might not be so obvious, like in boxing gyms or with groups of young people that have got loads of energy that might not want to sit or be able to sit still and just not feel it's for them. And staying in connection with the heart area. And one of the most powerful case studies we had, and it's not been the only case study in this area, but there was one young person, a youth worker, spoke to me and said that she was suicidal and had been for quite a long period of time. And she said to her youth worker, the only thing that I want to go to and keep doing is BAM. And the youth worker asked her why. And she said, it's the only thing that means something to me right now. And as we kind of unpacked this over a bit of time, we realized that it created this safety and containment for her where she could come back to her body in a safe way. That the physical expression allowed that kind of safer connection with her body. And it was really it was a really poignant story to hear that. And there's a lot of young people have talked about the kind of feeling they get after BAM, the way that it allows that connection. Particularly when there's strong emotions, it's very difficult to move towards experience or even close your eyes for certain people. So now finishing at the shoulders, bringing your awareness. So if we were completing a BAM session, this would be closing the circuit where we started. And then we would ask a young person to come up with an image or a sentence that describes how they feel. So you can do that. Is there an image or a word? Even if it doesn't make sense, it's okay. And then letting go of the focus. And again, like we did in the first practice, starting to take in a broader awareness that includes sounds. So what can you hear in your immediate environment? Can you hear anything outside? Start to broaden. And in this broader awareness, now inviting you to see if there's any questions or anything that's resonated with you, anything that hasn't resonated with you, anything that you want to challenge, anything that you want to follow up on. Very open to any questions. So just having a moment just to gather any thoughts, any questions. And even if you don't have a question, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn and ask at a later point if you follow this QR code that's on the screen. So bringing your awareness back into I was going to say the room, but kind of the room. And yeah, I think a little bit early, but I'd like to now hand back over to Liz, but now, to move into a period of questions or reflections, anything that's emerged really.
See, there's a comment in the chat there, Luke from Umakant, saying that your journey is inspirational, and he's quite touched by your amazing work, and thank you.
Thank you.
And we would love to know what any of you think, whether any of you think there is anything in this for the young people that you work with, whether it's something that you might be interested in or you think others might be interested in. Do you think it might be something that would be helpful for young people in Wales. It's been such a powerful description of the benefits for all sorts of young people, including some very marginalised ones that we don't often give access to things like this. And saying, I know you still have problems getting to the elites, Luke, and some of those are sceptical, but they do
Yeah.
have access to lots of things. And just the thought that we might have something that can get out to so many more people, whatever their level of advantage or disadvantage, is very powerful. But Christian has got a question there, put your hand up. So Christian, do you want to unmute and ask Luke your question?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, actually, I think getting involved with the breathing there, I think you can almost see, having experience involved in sport, but also doing bits of yoga and also running parenting courses, you could almost see perhaps or visualize how that could work in that intense environment. So I thought it was just really interesting in that short space of time, really, how that could potentially work, where in the environment, I know you mentioned about tech but lives are fast and sometimes it's difficult to be in control of our thoughts and things like that, feelings and stuff. So to just stop and connect, I thought that was, even though I was aware of that, but I think in a sporting aspect or in a physical activity, I could see how that could perhaps be quite interesting. So,
well, maybe that's something to experiment with in the next week or so. Like next time you do some physical training or anything on that level, try a meditation practice directly after. See if that supports, provides a foundation for that. Check it out for yourself.
Yeah, brilliant, really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, there's another comment there in the chat just saying that, it sounds great, and the person that's commenting saying that I'm sure all communities would benefit massively from this kind of training, the opportunity provided to them, and an amazing thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask a question as well? Obviously, there's a few of us who work together here, and we deliver boxing in schools on a non-contact basis. And just is this a course that I suppose we could be trained into in order to bring these into our sessions? Because, like you said, we do a lot of it anyway, but it's just making maybe the young people aware of it and us aware of it, and bringing it in maybe at the end of a session when you're doing some like static stretching and, like Kristen just said, like the yoga basis, and then obviously linking it through their sessions as well. So just
I mean that sounds awesome. And what the training would do, it would give you the confidence to deliver mindfulness practices and also certain themes around the boxing training. So you would be the ideal person, or that we would want to train, because you're out there doing, and you've got that connection, and this would give you the confidence to integrate the mindfulness and broaden it. Or for yourself as well. The training also trains youth workers and boxing coaches to really get it themselves, because you don't get it yourself, then you can't pass it on. So it has to be an embodied thing. But yeah, I think you'd be the ideal person. Please do reach out, because these are the kind of connections I'm here to make as well, so that we can get funding to make this training free. And if there's a few people that you could get together that are doing that, then that's something that we could explore. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, because like you said, like physical training, like obviously, takes you out the room sometimes when everything's heavy, I suppose, and it's mindfulness in itself. And what I find is a lot of the young people, when, like you said earlier, while they're training, they're free, I suppose, of any negative thoughts. And like you say, if we can be trained up and it's something that we can bring into our practice, I think it'd be a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, how positive the boxing is. And I see it.
if you could leave your details in the chat group, and anyone else that's interested in this line of inquiry, please whack your emails in the chat group, and I will be in touch. Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Just to say to everyone else, Aaron, I think you're available in Morgan, aren't you?
Yeah, so yeah, we're for the Vale of Glamorgan
And
Youth
I think
Service.
there are other people from South East Wales here, and maybe there would be a viable group.
Yeah, there's 4 of us on the course actually who all work together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
What would a viable group be?
Well, our first cohort was 15, our second cohort was 20, and it went down to 15. I think to get funding, I think 15 really, 12 to 15 people.
but we've got like I'm not sure of the numbers, but we've got enough numbers within our service to fill that, I suppose. So yeah, it's something to look at.
What I can do also, I'll share with you our brochure, our video, so you can really see the details of it. And it's basically, if we can get a provisional group together and that agreed, it gives us the capacity then to get the funding.
Yeah.
Just need to be absolutely tied down, but it takes a bit of time. But yeah, this is great.
So we've got something potentially a Vale of Glamorgan that could presumably, to make up the 15. If you didn't have the 15, that's Cardiff. There's a sort of area there. Then I've just noticed in the chat there, Leonie from Ceredigion, which is probably a bit far to get to Barry for training. But we're just thinking, oh, here we go. So we got Caerphilly as well.
If
Luke, we've got a round Wales tour here with people who are looking to get involved with.
anyone that's interested in this, please put your details in the chat, your email, where you're from, and yeah, we can start a dialogue.
So for people to know what it is they're asking, and what they're taking forward, then how would the training happen? How long is each of the training sessions for the workers? This is, and what part would they be, Luke?
This is a 3-day training.
3 consecutive?
Yeah, we delivered. No, there's breaks in between it. So there's a 1 day, a 2-week break, 1 day, a 2-week break, and an online session in the evening. That's how we run it. And there's a brochure and some videos which I can send out, so you can have anyone that puts their email address in, I will email you the full details of the training, so you can look at it, and then you can then come back with like your service and what you're doing, and we can start looking at what it would look like.
Yeah, and if you miss that, we will send... Sorry, Luke.
Yeah, it's like we can travel, like the training, we do want to get around different parts of yeah, and travel. So yeah, it's basically, it takes part over a 2-month period, and we come in at 3 different points, and there's an online.
So we will send out this recording after this meeting. We will send that out, so you've got Mindfulness Wales contact detail as well. I will save the chat, so Luke's got the chat and all of your details, but you'll have another chance then to get in touch there, because we'll put Luke's details on the email. And then if you need to persuade anyone else, if you need to persuade, if you're looking for, persuading your senior youth workers or whoever you need to persuade there, you'll have the video of this session that I think has been so powerful that people who haven't been able to make it tonight. But I'm looking here, we've got Caerphilly, we've got Pontypool, we've got Pembrokeshire, we've got a few in Pembrokeshire, so there might be a critical mass in Pembrokeshire. We've got a critical mass of Vale of Glamorgan, certainly around there, a bit in West Wales maybe. So there are several potential sort of centres where you could get people today to do a day, and if it's a whole day, most people would travel a bit, wouldn't you, to make a viable group there?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's looking promising. I wasn't expecting this kind of potential outcome. So yeah, great. Really appreciate the people. There's an appetite.
So I'm based in Pembrokeshire, West Wales, so I'm happy to do any liaison with you down there, and Ceredigion as well, because close by. I'm talking to the Pembrokeshire people now, because I'm very narrow-minded geographically. But and as Mindfulness Wales, we'll help.
We will help
in touch and network.
In contact with us, but you will need to let us know that you're okay for us to share your contact details. Although actually, as Wales, we all know each other, don't we? I'm thinking anyone who's put their name in there probably already knows each other. We get to 3 degrees of connection in Wales. Lee, Luke, we've gone a long way. So we will probably all manage to find a connection.
Just thinking that's a good legal argument. We all know each other anyway. Data protection.
Yeah, I've just been. We've been revising our data protection policy. This is why I'm a bit conscious there. But by hook or by crook, we can actually make these contacts and get everyone the contacts they need to be able to get to Luke there. And I think that organisations like the National Youth, the lottery, National Lottery Wales, would be very open-minded to something that is this directly benefiting young people. I think they would be very open. And we're not talking about we're not yet talking about the big bucks that you talked about in the development along the way, but have these pilot projects would be something really powerful, wouldn't it, to take forward?
Just to say, though, those big books weren't, they were incremental amounts. They were like, we didn't get any big chunks, just chunks, little pockets of money that just built it towards that being a big sum. We were quite surprised when we saw the amount that we'd received. So yeah.
And I'm guessing that for most of you, you've even got premises. So we'd be a long way along the way, wouldn't we? So yeah, how exciting is this? So anyone else who wants to put anything in the chat in terms of a question or a contact, are just so encouraging to see all of this interest here. Yeah, this is just so encouraging that we will let Luke have all of that. You can always come via us in terms of Mindfulness Wales. Oh, Rob, can you put our website address in the chat as well? In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a new website. And on our new website, we're going to be telling the stories. And I was talking to Luke earlier on there. We've got a section on inspirations from Wales, where we would want to put what you do. So we're going to collect some of this evidence when you get this and put those on there. But we're also going to have, because we're outward looking in Wales, we're very nationalistic, but we're outward looking. We're going to have stories from the wider world as well. So what would be lovely, Luke, if we could have the story of one of those groups of youth workers that you showed, with some comments from some of the young people that they've worked with.
Yeah, 100%.
Wouldn't that be a lovely story there? So we can start on our website. We'd have this inspiration on Boxing and Mindfulness from the wider world, really showing how it lands with young people, and that would inspire even more people. Yeah. Cool. So Rob has put a link in there to our website. It may go dead for the next week or so because we're in the process of transferring, but when it goes up, it will have lots of inspiration on there. And please join our mailing list, and then you can find out if we can manage to get mindful DJing and mindful photography and anything else we can think of. We said if Luke was late today, we'd get Rob to do mindful mushrooming. So we haven't had to do the magic mushrooms and because the boxing session.
I stick with the edible type rather than anything else, to be fair. I was just going to say the website address I put there now is the old website address. Is that what you meant, or did you want the new one? Yeah.
With any luck, it will be the new one. What I am saying is, if you find you can't get onto it over the next week or so, it may be in transfer, because we're trying to keep the same website address, and that is more complicated than one would ever think. Some of you will have been there and done that. But yeah, tell us your stories. So. Anything else anyone would like to put in? Heather, you're waving there.
Oh, I'd just like to, take the opportunity to thank Luke so much for sharing, your journey with us, because everyone said it's inspiring, and it is. And what works so well for me is the authenticity of it, of your life story evolving as you're working towards developing this amazing resource to help young people. And I thought that, that touched my heart, and I wanted to say thank you. And it was put over in a really kind of real way, which was lovely. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you working with young people, because it's such important work as well. And I really hope that there's a synergy. Well, there is a synergy here, and I really hope there's lots of courses come from it as well. But thank you, Luke, so much.
Thank you.
And before we finish, Kate wants to say
Yeah.
something now?
Yes. Also, just to echo those thanks from Heather. Hi, Luke. I'm Kate. I'm also on the I'm one of the trustees for Mindfulness Wales. So I wasn't here at the beginning to meet you, but again, thank you so much for a really inspiring talk. And there's so much that resonates with me in terms of the way that you meet people where they are, and you take mindfulness out into community and bring it to all these different sectors. And through a process of co-production as well. And I'm just really curious about how you approach that co-production. You kind of touched on it in terms of asking people questions as you go along. I wondered whether you might just have a minute to expand on that a little bit.
I feel like it's a talk in its own right. And through all of the grants that we've done, we've had a co-production manager, and that's someone that's been there every time we've delivered, that's had the sole role of just talking with young people before the sessions, after the sessions, asking them questions, gathering their feedback, seeing what works. So there's always a conversation going outside of the session with one of our staff members, with the young people and the youth workers. So we applied, we made sure we had money to just have that person there who wasn't part of the teaching team, that was just getting genuine conversations. Then we would get together and just see what the young people had said after each session. So that's just become a way of us working now. But the reason why I also think the co-production started with that question that young person asked me in that school, that kind of stumped me in a way. So it's like, call it co-production, or it's just making sure that there's always a proper conversation going on with the young people, with someone that's objective, that's not on the teaching team, that's just like gathering up and getting a review of the session from the young people's perspectives. And then different themes have emerged out of that. It really allowed us to tap into anger, because we realized that there was a lot of anger, and young people wanted us to address this, and having someone that could have conversations and pick up things and see what was going on. It's that was the mechanism for the co-production. But also we've had focus groups as well, where we looked at the BAM process, how we do the meditations, and getting input on what young people thought about that and if it made sense. And so just making sure there's money to have someone talking to young people, and having points where we bring young people together to look at themes, language, even that thing of the heart, before saying feel the heart, saying power in relation first. It's a powerful organ. Things like that, seemingly small, but it kind of you just pick up things that make sense for young people, or are a bit safer ways in. Also the mutual respect thing, that was a better way for talking about compassion and those kinds of practices. So it's been a conversation.
And I think that will have been music to the ears of all of the youth workers here tonight, and people who work with young people. That's where things fall down, and where communication falls down is because people are not listening, people are not really taking notice, and that just is where I'm pretty certain all of you want to go. And let's see if we can get some really exciting projects off the ground.
I also think it's like I said in the talk, it's been as much it's a genuine feeling that who's the teacher here, really, a lot of these young people and these boxing coaches, they've kind of grounded my mindfulness practice. I feel like they're my teachers, as much as it's a particular kind of common sense and groundedness that I've repeatedly come across, which has meant I've not been able to talk anything to them unless it made sense to them. And there's something about that's been a mechanism for bringing mindfulness through their eyes and their perspective, that I've just found so inspirational. So that's a really important thing. I think approaching communities, you've got to go in with the respect that you're there to learn as much as they are. And that from that attitude, you can go into any community. You don't even need to have a lived experience of connection. If you've got that genuine, you can go in, and that's what people feel when you relate to them.
And what a way to bring our session to a close. I'm conscious that we're coming up to 8:30 now, and I'm just so grateful. So many people have stayed for the whole session, and the response has been amazing. I know we're in a Zoom room and not in person, but I can feel the energy around the room and the excitement, and I'm pretty certain that a lot of young people are going to benefit from this. So thank you all very much for coming along, and just really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. So good luck, everybody. We will collect the chat. We'll send details out so that everyone can keep in touch and see where we get. And it's going to be really exciting. So thanks, everybody.
Everybody, appreciate your time.
Take care.